Hello, Peace Scholars. I'm Avis Kalfsbeck. This is the Pieces Here podcast. That is Teo's collar. I usually take his collar off when I start so it's not jingling around, but this is the Peace Lab. And today we're going to go over very briefly. I'm just going to read what the homework was for the episodes today. I'm going to talk about a little peace meditation that I do, and then I'm also going to read something that I wrote with Gemini about longevity and peace, a little creative narration that I'm going to do at the end. So we should be shorter. This was a good week. I took a few days off from writing to work on some things for my mom, and I also put on my list this week to work on my end of life plan. I've had this on my list for a while, and I got some documents done yesterday, and I was a little rushed, but I'd set the goal for the week and I wanted to accomplish it. And I used, there is an organization in Chico of death doulas, and it's called Full Circle Life and Death, I believe is the name of the organization. And you can have someone come to your home and speak to you and help you put your plan together, help you speak with your family if you'd like, but they also have resources of documents, your advanced healthcare directives and advanced directives, things related to if you want to specify a time where you might not, if you want to refuse food and water. So, yeah, all of those important things that we should think about before it's too late to be able to communicate them, and we put those decisions on our children. And I just want my kids to know exactly what I want. There was one, I'm going to write a little summary. And one thing I want them to know is that they don't need to be there if it's something that's too stressful, and that they will be with me regardless if they are there right at my side. Because if we do make a decision to end our life in a way that might be not so pretty at the end, right? You're uncomfortable. You're passing away. That if a loved one wants to be there, that's beautiful. If it's not something that it's going to cause duress, then I want them to know it's okay. So just things to think about. I want to start with looking at the homework. So on Monday, it's class 14 of Resonant Charms, and then we go into social chemistry. Social chemistry is how we talk to each other, our nervous system regulation, genuine empathy, and breaking out of our lonely silos. So that will be the next 14 classes starting on Wednesday of next week. And what were the episodes this week? We'll go through this pretty quickly unless I get on a tangent. So on Monday, episode 295 was of Resonant Charms 101 was the weight of the metaphor. And we talked about how we use these metaphors in healthcare, war on cancer, war on other illnesses, and it can create this feeling for the patient that if they haven't won the war, that there's something wrong, and that other metaphors could be better, including using that of a garden. And we're tending things, and there's natural endings to things. I didn't realize the link between me talking about end of life and this topic, but it's true. It also has to do with the reading I'm going to do at the end. So the homework was look up research on militarized metaphors in healthcare for alternative framings. And it also talks about the metaphor of the hero, which during COVID, some nurses and nurses unions came forward and said, we're just being called heroes as another way to take attention from the fact that we're being overworked and being put in danger. So it's very interesting. So that was that episode. Then on Wednesday, episode 296 is the false consensus detector. And I love this episode. one of the examples it talks about is the minority opinion in AA. And it's so beautiful in AA that if there is a vote and that there's a call for the minority opinion, so that even if there were some loud voices and something got passed, that someone is able to still speak their opinion. And sometimes what happens is, we follow the loud voice, but then afterwards, when we're thinking through what that minority opinion was, it makes a lot of sense and we can change our mind on things. And the beautiful thing about AA is group conscience. There are no leaders. And so the homework for this episode was look up AA 12 Concepts for World Service, specifically the right of appeal or the history of Operation Earnest Voice, and identify one way artificial personas are used to shift public opinion. And this episode, we provided a toolkit to identify astroturfing and protect dissenting voices. Their companies, and that's their sole job, is to create these grassroots movements that appear to be grassroots, but they really have a lot of money behind them. So that was that. And then on Friday, yesterday, came out Apology is Engineering. And oh gosh, I love this episode, thinking about how we structure our apology, getting rid of the but. And we treated apology as structural repair, examine the South African TRC's focus, Truth and Reconciliation Committee's focus on specificity, the importance of restitution calendar as seen in the fixed timeline for the Civil Liberties Act implementation. That's where we paid the Japanese Americans internees money. So basically, before all the apologies were made, they set a calendar for sending out that money. And so the homework for that was look up the 1988 Civil Liberties Act or the Luxembourg Agreement for Material Repair examples. So I'm making that shorter. We didn't actually do the homework for that. I did it before I got on this recording because I'm going to keep it a little shorter today. And anyone who's been following the Peace Labs and hanging in there with me, I really appreciate you. So I wanted to share, I was thinking, my lunch with my daughter last weekend was beautiful. We went to brunch. And it was with my mom and my sister. And my sister had a bracelet that my mom had given her when she was in her 30s. And she gave that gift to my daughter. And it was from Mexico. And it was silver with some gems. And it was very nice. And we just had a lovely brunch. So that was nice. So this meditation I've been doing now for about a month. For years now, I focus on peace and I connect. There are some divine principles: abundance, justice, love, joy, creativity. I usually attach peace to a concept. And so in my meditation, I'll sit down and I'll just decide, okay, I don't always meditate on it the whole time or do my yoga to it the whole time, but I'll be in and out with it. And a common one that I'll use is peace, creativity. I'm a writer, and it's just a word that is nice for me. But sometimes it's peace, abundance, peace, love. But about a month ago, I landed on things in nature. And so I started with the first one that came to my mind was peace, birds, and was that it? Or leaves? Maybe leaves. I think the first one was leaves. And this room, you can see the filtered light. There's a Japanese maple right here in my window and trees above. And so it's the dappled light coming in. And just tying, we can get to feel so much frustration and emotional heartache for what's happening in the world. And when we can tie back to nature and the truth of the earth and the things that will be here, even if we don't make it as humans, the earth will keep going, Mother Earth. and the recovery of that. It's going to happen. We need to get our act together because that's going to happen with or without us. So why not be a part of it? But this reconnecting to nature. So Peace leaves, and then I went the next week to Peace Birds. And through my day, it's just lovely. Or on my walk, it's kind of something that I'm focusing my attention on. Then the next one was Peace Daughter. Oh, wow. Is that a beautiful feeling to meditate on the phrase Peace Daughter and just the whole feeling, whether or not you are a mother, the feeling of motherhood and care and the deep, deep love that your mother had for you. And then the next one was Peace Son. So I just wanted to share that with you. So we're going to end pretty quickly today, but the way we're going to end this is I've been listening to a podcast called Moonshots, and I really enjoy it. I love Alex Wiesner Gross. I apologize if I said his name wrong. They often say AWG, but he's a brainiac, and why I feel affinity toward him is he has made a couple different comments when they're talking about maybe AI eventually having rights. He will bring in animal rights and animals having, certain rights. And I love that. And he seems to be a very level thinking person. That podcast is about optimism, but they often do bring in both sides. And I find that of all of the hosts on that show, that AWG tends to tell it like it is. You'll hear Peter Diamandis sometimes either be quiet or move them along if they start getting too real. But one thing that Peter Diamandis owns companies and is following all of this longevity business. And a couple podcasts ago, they mentioned that someone said that if they take away all of the things in our bodies that are getting us to our point where we're going to die, that if we fixed everything, a human could live 1,000 years. And so as I reflect on that, it's a very interesting thing. And I think it can create, a fear of missing out, a fear, we have as humans such a strong, we're always comparing, and if we feel that, I'm supposed to be extending my life as long as I can, and so there's weighing being healthy and eating well and exercising and being made aware of breakthroughs that could extend our life. And this is, in my opinion, obviously, it's my podcast. And then there's the side where we're going to take whatever drug or pay for whatever process might happen with this idea of living forever. So I had some thoughts on the topic, and I love the writing of Henry David Thoreau. So I went to Gemini and I said, can you write like Henry David Thoreau? And of course it's going to say yes. They're all very confident. So what came out, I wouldn't say is what I thought it was going to be. And I didn't put in the prompt much for talking about nature. So I wouldn't say, this sounds more like just Gemini working with Avis than it does Henry David Thoreau. But that was one of my inspirations. And I keep my prompts so I can remember how I created this thing. So I just want to share this with you. We'll just take a deep breath. Human being versus human longing. There's a quiet panic in the air, dressed up as progress. A handful of men, it's almost always men, are currently scrambling toward the horizon, trying to outrun death itself. They speak of human life extended to 1,000 years if only every variable can be controlled, every gene tuned, every cell optimized. They assemble stacks of supplements, track their biological clocks, and measure their breath as though living were an engineering problem to be solved. When I was younger, there were other apostles of ultimate health. I remember Ewell Gibbons, the famous spokesman for wild foraging and pinecone eating, who died suddenly at 64. I think of Jim Fixx, who wrote the Bible on running and promised it would save us, dying of a heart attack mid-stride at 52. They were not foolish. They were simply human. They mistook the container for the contents. Today, that same old impulse is wrapped in shiny, high-tech promises, and if we're not careful, it breeds a subtle dread, a fear that our natural, decaying, magnificent bodies are somehow defective because we aren't spending our time, effort, and wealth chasing biological immortality. If someone came to me today and said, "We found a gene. If we modify it, you will live 10 more years," I would probably say yes. I love this life. But there's a line where self-preservation turns into a product, a path paved with procedures, pills, and panic, built by industries whose only true objective is to profit off our terror of ending. What if we chose to be human beings rather than human longings? To be a human longing is to live in perpetual scarcity. It is to view this world as an empty cup that requires 1,000 years of tech to fill. To be a human being is something else entirely. It is what Wendell Berry means when he chooses the plow and the local soil over the rush of modern efficiency. It is what Peace Pilgrim understood as she walked across this continent with nothing in her pockets, carrying only the conviction that peace begins in the quiet mind. It is the understanding that a life is not measured by its duration, but by its presence. If we genuinely care about longevity, if we truly want more human life on this planet, the most radical thing we can do is not to build a better lab. It is to build a world of peace. War is the ultimate cutter short of human potential. It ends lives not only through immediate violence, but through poisoned waters, destroyed harvests, collapsed infrastructure, and the silent, slow-burning trauma handed down through generations. Imagine the immense wealth, intellect, and obsession currently poured into personal longevity, redirected toward eradicating war. Imagine an Earth so rooted in compassion, dignity, and peace that the tech bros look at Mars and decide they'd rather stay right here. I do not need to live to be 1,000 to work for that world. I only need to be fully human today. We got plenty of Teo collar jingling in our reading today, and I just want to send you much love and peace.